what are we doing in the black community? The number one consumer of a Mercedes-Benz is us. Us. The number one consumer of a Gucci and a Louis Vuitton, us. And they don't even advertise. Why is it that in the black community, we are always the number one consumer, but we're not the number one creators?
So you just said it, the fact that there's consumers and creators. For so long, we assume success based on consumption.
Welcome back to Closing the Gap, the truth about black wealth. Of course, we're here today with Mr. Otis Leverette, having a wonderful time, dropping a lot of knowledge on us today, man. I'm just, I'm feeling good. I'm ready to go jump in the gym myself. I need to go and get a little workout here right quick because this energy is filling the room, and I hope you can feel it. And I know you can feel it at home as well. But one thing we were kind of talking about, is what we feel like the lack of competition nowadays, and how kids, I feel like, are not as competitive. You working with these kids on a day-to-day basis, and you kind of seeing them, and what kind of makes them tick. What has happened to the competition or lack thereof?
I'll tell you, man, and this is a holistic answer. This ain't just it ain't a I'm not pinpointing answer. I'm telling you holistically because I've been able to go on a journey with so many kids. What is happening in today's, you look at 40, 50 years ago, people were eliminated by the lack of education. Just flat out not having enough education. Then we went into, especially in the black community, we went through a phase where the crack era and the heroin era and all these different drug eras ended a lot of people's hopes and dreams. I am of the opinion in this generation, the determining factor going to be the lack of being able to compete and be compared. Because at the end of the day, I'm just being honest, I've learned this from dealing with a lot of school kids. A lot of these guys and young ladies, what we call smart 15, 20 years ago was the guy that sat up at the front of the room, had all the notes, and truly went home and studied. Kids are Googling answers now. So what we call smart in this generation, you can see a kid with a 4.0 and you try to have a regular common conversation with him, and you just like, this conversation is not reflecting the honor graduate. You understand what I'm saying? So what happens is, and I'm getting to the point of competition. So what I'm saying is, we close the education gap. The drug problem is starting to change complexions. It's still there, but it's starting to change complexions. It's not as adamant and as overt as it once was. The next generation, in my opinion, the kids we have now will be eliminated by their inability to compete and be compared. Winners don't suffer. Notice, whenever you run into somebody who don't know how to win, the first thing they'll tell you is, I'm not in a competition. Don't compare me to nobody. They want to make sure, because in all actuality, you fear that. And so what happens is, you can have all the education, you can be headed in the right direction, and to be honest with you, I even watch it in training. We building bigger, faster, stronger quitters. So in this process, we're giving you all this specialized training, we're giving you all this specialized information. You are more ahead as far as knowledge is concerned. But you don't understand the greatest knowledge of them all, and that's the will to win and to compete. We all got here through competition. Okay, I'll tell you the reason I say that. No one was born a quitter. You can't get me to believe this. If once that counterpart leaves that male, you're talking about 200 to 300 million sperms. We were the one that got to the egg. It was a race. So we come from competition. So if you're here, that means you were the sperm that beat all the rest of them to the egg. Because every last sperm got a different, you could have been another gender. You could have had different height. You could have, just because you came out of that man doesn't mean that you would be the person you are if you were another sperm. So in saying that, we come from competition, but we are sucking all the fight out of these kids. And what happened is the ones that fall for it will be just as far behind as the crackhead was, just as far behind as the guy who had a 10th grade education would be in this generation. You watch what I tell you.
Man, you know what? I agree with you 110% because that's something that I don't get and I don't understand. I see my son, I watched them, kids at a track meet yesterday, and the kids are racing. And I was them kids coming up. I was probably a sore loser. I probably consider sore loser because you beat me. I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
I don't want to be your friend. Don't say that to me. You be lucky if I talk to you the next day. It take me a while to get over it. I'm not wired that way. Like I want to win. I want to compete. I want to be the best at whatever it is I'm doing. But I'm watching kids race. And I'm watching kids run the 100 and the 200 and the relays and things of that nature. And I don't see anybody upset that they lost. And I'm looking and I'm just like, what's wrong with y'all?
But it's a caveat to that. I gotta step in right there. It's a caveat to that. You looking at no kid be upset by losing, and then you see parents down there in the fence taking pictures, and they just as happy as the kid. So it's being passed down. Man. I'm just being honest. Like I'm enjoying the loss too.
Yeah.
So my heroes and my heroines are at the fence, and long as they can post and hashtag, they just as excited because baby got on the spirit pack. They just as excited about the loss as I am. So there's no backlash for the loss. Do that make any sense?
Man, it made perfect sense, and I'm glad you said it because it gives me confirmation for why I feel the way I feel in the decision I recently made. So I'm not gonna call the school's name. My son was at one school the first semester. Mm-hmm. I watched him go through football. I watched him go through basketball first semester of the year, and my wife is a principal at another school. And I had one of the parents came to ask me and say, Mr. Hamilton, you think you're gonna move your son over to the other school since your wife is a principal there now? And I said, probably so. And he looked at me and said, well, why would you move him over there? If you go there, he's gonna have to compete. And I looked at him and I said, but that's exactly why I'm moving him right there. The fact that you want him to stay here because you feel like he could be a big fish in a small pond, but over here, y'all are not bred in a competitive spirit. Yeah. It's not a winning, fighting atmosphere. Like, I want my son to have to compete. I don't mind him having to go into a situation and start out at rock bottom and had to work his way up. Mm-hmm. I remember what helped me when I walked in the door at UAB. I didn't know what position I was going to play. Mm-hmm. They recruited me coming out of high school. I was a tight end, played a little bit of defense, and I ended up playing defensive line, because of Andre Crosby. Exactly. They did know if Big Dre was going to be eligible y'all senior year. Yep. I come in, and they ended up becoming eligible. So they say, you know what? We got to put this kid somewhere else. They said, where can we put him? We're going to put Willbert on defensive line. So they put him in defensive line at 3 technique. I remember we reported early. We had to start practice 2 days early. I go into Coach Donahoe's office. He was defensive line coach at UAB at the time. And they had a depth chart. And I saw my name on the depth chart. And I was number 5 on the depth chart. And it pissed me off so bad. It lit something in me. I was so upset, and I felt so disrespected. And I went to practice, and I literally would cramp up every day after practice, locked up to one day. I had a full body cramp and whole body seized up but I went out there with a passion and mission, like, hey man, you done disrespected me. Like, I ain't no way, I'm finna be number 5. It's not 4 people better than me. Yeah. It may be 1 or 2 that's been here that may be better than me just because they, know the game and this is something new for me, but you're not finna leave me at number 5. Yeah. That's disrespect to me as a man. I'm gonna compete, and I'm way better than that. And I see kids now, they're in that same situation, and there's no reaction. And it was confirmed for me what you just said, literally by the decision I made to move my son into a different environment, because I want him to have to compete, and it's not even about sports. But it's what you're talking about. It's about I'm raising a man. Yeah. I'm trying to build a winner in life. I want you to be able to withstand and withhold some adversity, because you're going to go through something as a man, a husband, a father. There's going to be some things that happen in life that's going to kick your butt. You're going to have to stand up in front of that face and run through that brick wall in order to, tackle that task. And, I want my son to be made of the right stuff from the ground up.
Yes, sir.
In order to get where we need to go. Right back at you in a minute.
Yeah. Coming in. Yeah. Flex. I just wanna win. Yeah. LABB, who we running with. Yeah. 2, 2, 3, 3, I'm on 10 again. Yeah. State your name. Been dope on flame. I just switched the lanes. Damn, he did it again. I just flipped the pain. Stripping and dipping in bass. Slab on everything. Swimming, you sinking away. Cause I got big racks coming. I put my low racks on it.
Welcome back to Closing the Gap, the truth about black wealth. Of course, we're here back picking up on where we left off and having a wonderful conversation, man, and enlightening and uplifting and motivating, and that's what it's all about. This is how we, close the wealth gap, in our community. I always tell people that, they're looking for a hot stock tip that, close the wealth gap really has nothing to do with money. It's all about trust. is all about relationships. It's all about work ethic and building yourself up, from the ground up, and be willing to stand and go through adversity, because tough times don't last, but tough people do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have to be made of the right stuff. And it's always great for me to know that, there's other gentlemen out there, mentoring, pouring into these kids the way you do. I mean, because I look at your post in the morning, it uplifts me and it gets me going. And I show up to my sons, hey, look at, I know you try to hear the same message from me, but hear from somebody else. So your message is bigger than you and to touching more people than you think. And of course, for me, that's what I believe. My passion is to touch people that I've never come into contact with. And I feel like, you've been on your journey, me just kind of watching from the sideline and kind of seeing what you're doing and just being happy to know you, to know what you're doing and know that you're doing it because it's in your heart.
Absolutely.
Not because of what you can get out of it. And I think that's the one thing that I think people miss in even being successful from an entrepreneur standpoint. Obviously, you run the business and you want to grow a business and be the best you can possibly be. But the foundation of that business has to be, I want to be a giver. Mm-hmm. I want to help people. Even for me as a financial advisor, look, I tell any financial advisor I come into contact with, they say, well, how can you make it? And I've been blessed to be in this business 17 years. And I said, well, look, it has to always be about people first.
Yeah.
It has to be about helping someone else, because if you go into any conversation, any meeting, thinking about you've already done that client a disservice.
Absolutely.
So you have to continue to put people first, and it's always a blessing and privilege for me to hear other people doing the same thing, just obviously in a different field, but how we can all work together and hopefully uplift the community and help close the gap. And I know we kind of dove into, competition, and, I feel like our lack of competing, and the competition is being, I feel like you said, sucked out of our society to a certain extent, and almost training kids up not to be competitive and to be more complacent, and only allowing, certain gifted kids are going to be the ones that succeed, so they can, I feel like you said, probably use their talent in a specialized way only for a certain kind of game that we would never be able to fully control, because if you don't have a strong mind, sooner or later the body's going to follow. Absolutely. So they're going to use up that talent, and then you get to a point where you're not strong enough to, stand on your own, and then you fall by the wayside, and they continue to recycle it and do that over and over again. But, within the training that you're doing, I mean, what are you seeing the greatest benefits of, from the kids that go through your program? What are things that, they come back to you and say, what, I appreciate the fact that you did it this way, and what that's led them to?
I got you're going to hear me use his words a ton because I believe in it. I talk about things being holistic. Mm-hmm. I got a approach that I take with a kid. I got a saying. If I teach you to be a better man, you will automatically be a better athlete. Or if I teach you, because I train young ladies too, and I don't want to slight them. If I teach you to be a better young lady, you will automatically be a better athlete. But just because you're a better athlete won't make you a better man or a woman. Mm-hmm. So the first thing, my biggest foundation with them at all times is to say, okay, you just now walk through that line. You didn't go all the way through that line. You didn't finish the drill. Now this gonna reflect how you gonna raise your children. It's gonna reflect how you pay your bills. They know me. We could be in the middle of a training session. I would stop and have a 10-minute speech how one drill will absolutely reveal your character. And so it's an ongoing effect of me trying to reveal these kids' character to them so that they can see. Michael Jackson wrote a gospel song, some folks call it a pop song, it's a gospel song in my world, called Man in the Mirror. I just feel like it's one of the greatest songs ever written, because if you're willing to truly address him on a day-to-day basis, you become unstoppable at that point. So what I run into a lot of times, one of the greatest benefits and one of the greatest, even Wilbert, even talking to you, man, it makes me feel good. And I feel the same way about you as a man. The fact that you spent way more time talking about who I was as a man than a ball player, that's my ultimate goal in life. Every kid that I train, I want that to be their ultimate goal, because you're gonna be a man or a woman, preferably way longer than you're gonna be a ball player. God bless the dead and Dwayne Haskins. We hate to see situations where you don't get to the other side of it, but man, if you get to that other side, you're gonna be a man or woman way longer than a ball player. So in saying that, that is my ultimate goal, is to try to get those kids to understand that. And that's the number one compliment or affirmation I can get from a kid once they left the program, when they come back and say, Coach, I'm really ready for man and womanhood. I had a kid not too long ago, went and took a job at UPS. He decided out of high school, coach, I don't really want to do the college route, it ain't for me. And he know I tell him all the time, man, find what's for you and go at it. He called me the other day, man, and say, coach, within a year of being at UPS, they've moved me up to the manager at UPS. And he say, coach, I just want to tell you thank you because I know when I got on that assembly line every day, nobody could outwork me. He said when they were complaining, they were showing up late, they were giving up, they were ungrateful. All the principles that you instilled in me when I was on that line got me to being a manager. And then I say, now stop right there. Now always remember now, we gotta keep going. Don't drown in shallow water. That's always my thing with him. Don't you drown in shallow water. He laughed because he knew it was coming. But at the end of the day, that's what I'm talking about. So those, as much as I've had kids get drafted to the NFL, All-Americans, Heisman Trophy, but man, those stories matter just as much to me as a kid to say, coach, and stand up to everybody around him. College ain't my thing. I want to go into the workforce and go to work every day, and now to call me and say, hey man, I've been moved up to a manager. Man, I'll take that every day of the week because there's so many other mischievous things he could have been in as a young black male other than being a manager at UPS.
Yeah. You know, and that's powerful. I mean, you know, it's crazy. I feel like, you know, a lot of people say things, but they say it in different ways. And how I interpret that is, you know, me, I'm a faith-based person. That's just where I was raised, where I was coming up. And of course, I hear that in you as well. And, you know, I had been kind of a spiritual father to me, and a guy named Bishop Carter. You know, he came into my life probably around 2007, 2008-ish. And, you know, he made a statement to me, he said, Willbert, he said, one thing that I can promise you, if you always keep your character right, you never have to worry about your business. He said, I don't care how good you are at whatever you do as a profession. You could be the best in the world in your profession or whatever area that you specialize in. But if your character is not right, at some point in time, it's going to be revealed, it's going to affect your profession. It's going to affect you. He said, so as long as you keep your character right and you stay on the right side and stay God first, he said, you'll never have to worry about your business. And that's something that I just took to the bank, and it just stayed with me, you know, throughout the course of my journey. And it's something that I've been part of that he put in me, just, you know, it's one of those things that he says to me, I don't care how gifted you are, at being a financial advisor, at being a trainer, at being a coach. If your character is not right, at some point in time, it's going to affect your profession. But as long as your character is first, and he always told me, your character is not what everybody sees you doing, is what you're doing when nobody's looking. And if you always keep that right, keep your character and integrity right, you never have to worry about your profession. And, you know, those are words I feel like to live by, that everybody can live by, and things that I think we need to take, you know, that onus and accountability of. And I get joy hearing those kind of stories that you talked about, because, you know, I remember a lot of those stories. My father was a high school basketball coach, so I know about pouring in people. And one thing, the greatest lesson my father always taught me was he taught me a lot of great lessons. I feel like my father's the greatest man I ever met in my life besides Jesus. So for me, you know, he always said people don't want to know how much you know until they find out how much you care. And that was always his message with kids, because obviously he was raised, you know, around kids. He raised a bunch of kids, and he got a bunch of sons. And I, you know, to this day, I will bump the guys, and when I go home, hey man, tell your dad I love him, man. Yeah. And those things, you know, mean the world. You know, I know they mean the world to him, but they mean the world to me, because it lets me know that people appreciate it. You know, the time and effort that he spent, just like they're, you know, he's telling you, Coach, man, I appreciate you. Thank you. When they give you those stories, you know, they're giving you your flowers now. Yeah. And I think that's something that's important, because, you know, we all need that motivation from time to time to keep going, just that affirmation that, you know, we're on the right track to keep doing what we're doing, keep pushing and keep moving forward. And, you know, I think we all need to do that more so together and hear more of these kind of stories, because there's too much negativity out there. Like I said, there's too many things that young man could have been doing, but he's doing the right thing. And we need to celebrate that just as much as we celebrate the kids going on to have football scholarships, NFL and everything else, because that's just a different in talent and ability. Absolutely. You know, I know a lot of kids, just like you know a lot of kids that may be harder workers than the kids that are, you know, college prospects and NFL players, but they just didn't have the talent and ability. God didn't bless them in that aspect, but we've all been blessed with something. Yep. And the core foundation principles that you're pouring into these kids are things that we can live by, and everybody needs to live by. Back in a minute.